Off and running we go on a 13th, on a Tuesday, the 13th of January. Welcome inside the Vault for a Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. It's brought to you by our friends at Manta Sleep. I'm Bobby Trossett, joined alongside my co-host and partner, Sarah Ellison. We heard from a lot of you related to yesterday's live stream and the glitch post-show that took place on the back end of YouTube. My apologies. Tried my best to fix it, and ultimately didn't fix anything. So what I did was just re-uploaded the whole thing as a pre-recorded episode, if you will. It's just under our videos tab in case you wanted to see Sarah's return, in case you wanted to catch out any of that 120-minute episode that was yesterday's live stream. So apologies there. Appreciate everybody who reached out. Sarah, obviously today is going to be a jam-packed blockbuster day for Ravens coverage. A little under 2 hours from now, for the first time since 2018, Steve Bisciotti will conduct a press conference in a setting that has cameras on and is at one winning drive. In 2022, he spoke to reporters off camera, some of which was off the record at a owners meetings in Florida. So he, alongside Eric DeCosta, will go and meet with reporters. It'll be a standard press conference, and you and I are going to provide special coverage immediately after that is over, sometime in the 3 o'clock hour if we're on top of our stuff. So that's what we have to look forward to in terms of today's show, and we hope you'll join us for that later on this afternoon. The first half of today's show, Sarah, is just getting everybody caught up to speed on the 15th candidate. That's right, the 15th head coach candidate the Ravens have interest in, and as this entire thing's titled, the hottest, most sought-after perhaps candidate league-wide. The competition that the Ravens are in on is starting to ramp up. So between that, the Steelers being one and done, another 10-7 season, all for naught, Aaron Rodgers potentially having played his last game, his last throw could very well go down as a pick six. There's a lot to get to. It's great to see you. If you guys could on the way in, please like the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We'll get to as many super chats as possible. And with that, we're off and running.
There's a lot to get to. I cannot wait to hear from Steve Bisciotti. Like you said, it has been years. I've been asking for it. I kind of wonder if he kept Harbaugh, if he would have spoken, but who knows? All I know is I'm glad we're going to hear from him in a podium setting for, the first time in years and years. But as we await that at 2 o'clock, there's still more coaching news coming down. And there are 8 teams that need coaches. And there is one candidate who has been requested to be interviewed by all 8 teams. And that candidate is Jesse Minter. As we hear from Albert Breer, Jesse Minter, who's the Chargers' current defensive coordinator, has interview requests from the Browns, the Cardinals, the Dolphins, the Falcons, the Giants, the Raiders, the Ravens, and the Titans. So that's all 8 teams. Has Harbaugh been asked for all 8 teams, Bobby?
I'd have to go back and look at some of the receipts on that one. He's obviously up there, and maybe is in terms of like initial.
I remember he had been contacted actually by I think 9 at the time, and only 6 openings were there at the time. So anyway, maybe of the candidates that the Ravens have requested interviews from, Jesse Minter is for sure the most sought after. I looked up Clint Kubiak. He has quite a number. I think he's got 5, but Jesse has all 8. As we know, this could be a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's a fine thing. He does come up through the Harbaugh ranks. He's been working with Jim. He's been to Michigan. He's worked with John for many years. So Albert Breer goes on to say the plan is, after doing the Titans and Cardinals today, for Minter to do, he's going to do 2 more on Wednesday, then 2 on Thursday, then 2 on Friday. He says, and I do think Mike Macdonald's success in Seattle helps him. They worked together under Wink Martindale in Baltimore, and Minter succeeded McDonald at Michigan. So I know a lot of people are like, I don't want a Harbaugh guy, but I mean, Mike Macdonald's a Harbaugh guy. He really got a chance by John, went on with Jim, came back to John, and is now having success. So I don't think that should be, I know for fans that rules him out. For me, it does not. And I'm sure for the Ravens, it does not. I'm sure he's one of the top guys on the Ravens list, but he might be the top guy on a lot of people's lists.
Yeah, so for starters, I think the best way to describe the whole John Harbaugh question that you were just posing there a second ago, is that in terms of initial inquiries, to your point, at the time, like 9 teams, there were only 8 vacancies, and then Miami, of course, became another one of those. maybe initial inquiries, John had everyone reaching out, but then he made it clear that he's going to essentially handpick who he actually gets into like conversations with, and it gets past those preliminary conversations. So let's just kind of clarify that. And then as far as Jesse's concerned, to your point, the most highly sought after non-previous head coach experience. I think that's, not up for debate at all. And as you mentioned, he has a ton of experience within the Harbaugh family. This is somebody that played football. He was a wide receiver. He's an offensive-minded guy just based on his playing experience at the college level, but then immediately went into coaching and started kind of coming up through the defensive ranks. It began at Notre Dame as a defensive intern in 2006. He then took a grad assistant gig with Cincinnati, then the linebackers coach at Indiana State, promoted to defensive coordinator there after a couple years, then on to Georgia State. I mean, you get it, right? And then the Ravens obviously brought him in as a defensive assistant under Harbaugh in 17 and 18. He was promoted to the assistant defensive backs coach in 19, then the DBs coach straight up in 2020. That's why we played earlier this week Jimmy Smith's comments when he came on the Vault on Friday with me. I thought he shed some great light in terms of what makes Jesse an attractive candidate, and went as far as to say, like, hey, he's one of those guys that right before the game, after you've basically done all your prep work as a player, you want some of those extra nuggets, you go to a guy like Jesse. And he even said, as we talked about earlier this week, Sarah, he did refer to him as Mike McDonald-ish. Wouldn't go as far as to, make that comparison in playing a day, but obviously it's within that realm. So after the Ravens, he went to Vanderbilt, served as the defensive coordinator and safeties coach for a year. And then, as we know, Jim Harbaugh bolted to the NFL, won a title with Michigan, brought Jesse in to serve as his DC, then bolted to the NFL after that title and brought Jesse along with other members of that staff, including Joe Ortiz in Baltimore, to the Chargers. And that's what's been going on in that program over the last couple of seasons. So, look, I think that there's a high level of intrigue in a guy like him. And Sarah, you know where it kind of starts too is the Chargers have their own Kyle Hamilton, a guy named Derwin James. And I think Sarah's having some technical difficulties. We'll get back her in hopefully just a second. The Chargers have their own guy, their own Kyle Hamilton, their own chess piece, right? In Derwin James, one of the top safeties in the entire league. And I spent part of my morning kind of reviewing and going back and listening to some press conferences that were either conducted by Jesse himself since he came to Los Angeles as the DC, or Derwin since Jesse showed up. And the mutual respect that they have for one another is one thing. But then I found a clip from Derwin who said something along the lines, Sarah, and just in case you missed this, I spent part of my morning gathering and reviewing press conferences over the last couple of years of what Derwin James, meaning the Chargers version of Kyle Hamilton, had to say about Jesse Minter and what Jesse Minter had to say about Derwin James. And I'm pretty intrigued by the idea of Jesse potentially having Kyle, for example, at his disposal. There was one thing that stood out to me, and I think you'll appreciate this, that Derwin said about Jesse as the play caller. He essentially said, this was November of 2024. He said, man, it's almost like we have their script, meaning the opponent's offense. They know what's coming. That's how prepared he felt like under the tutelage of Jesse Minter. You're smiling for a reason. Everybody should be smiling about that. So anyway, that's the first of many intriguing aspects of what would make him an attractive candidate in Baltimore.
Yeah, like I said yesterday, Jesse Minter is one of those that it was just like, he's obviously going to be on the Ravens top. It was the most obvious interview that they were going to make, even before he became a hot candidate, where 8 total, 7 other teams were asking for him. So Jesse's probably in my top 3. I said yesterday that Clint Kubiak is still my favorite. And this is all on paper, right? I really like what Clint Kubiak brings in terms of his football background, but Jesse does too. His father has been a longtime coach also. So Jesse knows. He's not new to this, just like John Harbaugh wasn't, Clint Kubiak isn't, Jesse Minter isn't. And so I kind of see Jesse and Clint kind of being two sides of a coin, but Clint kind of represents the offensive side and Jesse represents the defensive side. And I mean that on paper. I don't know who they are as leaders, right? I haven't been around them. I don't know them. I don't feel like there's been enough like profiles done on both of these guys to know how they are, to be able to motivate a locker room and all that kind of stuff. So I don't have that to go on, but I love the success that they've both had on their sides of the football field. I like that Clint could bring this offensive mind and, perhaps if he meets with Lamar, really see how they gel together. But same with Jesse. And Jesse is a great candidate to bring back Ravens defense again. I mean, like you said, Derwin James is like, dang, I got the script. And Jesse was with Mike McDonald when they were innovating things. And, he was right there watching all of it. And then he takes Mike McDonald's spot at Michigan. And then he's doing a great job. Like he unlocked Odafe Owe, which the Ravens here with Zach Orr couldn't do. I mean, Odafe did have double-digit sacks last year when Justin Madubuike was still healthy and playing in the middle of the field, but it just felt like Jesse unlocked him more. So, if you want a defensive-minded person, I could see why Jesse and Brian Flores are two very attractive people, and it's gonna come down to who Steve Bisciotti, Eric DaCosta, and Lamar Jackson feel the most comfortable with and who they have the most chemistry with.
Jesse, in 2 years, 2 regular seasons with the Chargers. Yeah, they haven't made any noise in the postseason. I get that. Certainly wasn't for a lack of the defensive effort over the weekend. They did their part. Greg Roman's side of the ball, not so much, as we discussed on Monday. But Sarah, this is a defense led by Jesse that's ranked 1st and 9th over 2 seasons. So 2 top 10 postings, if you will, by his group. You mentioned what he was able to get out of Odafe in a contract year. It's got Owe getting up there at his post-game press conference and saying, hey, I want to be here, man. I hope Joe Ortiz calls my cell phone. Not sure he would have said that had things continued to transpire the way they did for him the first 5-6 weeks leading into the trade deadline in Baltimore, had he stayed and not been dealt. And, of course, the acquisition there, and which brought Alohi Gilman to Baltimore. So clearly, Jesse Minter is one of those names that, as we've discussed and as Albert Breer is reporting, that's going to be a hot candidate now that he's been eligible to be reached out to. And the Ravens interview will come later on this week. You see what he has in store for him starting today with the Titans and the Cardinals. As we continue to move forward, Sarah, there became a 15th overall candidate known, put out by the Ravens, put out in this case right here by Tom Pelissero of NFL Network. And that is the Baltimore native and defensive coordinator, who I guess technically is not the defensive coordinator anymore in Cleveland, knowing that the head honcho was let go a week ago in Kevin Stefanski, but Jim Schwartz, somebody that needs no introduction. For those of you from Baltimore, you know that he went to Mount St. Joseph, born and raised in the Hillthorpe area, went to Georgetown in D.C., and now the Ravens have an initial request out for him, Sarah. He's also interviewed, as Mary Kay Cabot told me over the weekend, for Cleveland's head coaching job. The team does not want to lose him, according to Tom. But obviously, Sarah, knowing that it's been championship caliber on his side of the ball in Cleveland in recent years, he'd be at the very least, somebody you want to talk to about his visions on that side of the ball.
For sure. I mean, I would love Jim Schwartz more as the defensive coordinator than the head coach. Again, to me, you're looking for a young guy that could be here for 10 to 15 years. If you're not, it just needs to be like a slam dunk veteran coach. I don't know that that's what Jim Schwartz represents as a slam dunk being a head coach, but we'll love him as a defensive coordinator. And quite frankly, that could be a chance. I don't know that any of these 8 teams are going to hire him as the head coach. Do you know what I mean? I don't know that he's a favorite for a head coach for anybody. And because he doesn't have a job anymore, a lateral move could very well happen if one of these 7 other teams don't take him as a head coach. And here's what's crazy. Maybe, just maybe, that could be Brian Flores also. Ian Rappaport reported this morning that the Commanders are hoping to interview Brian Flores for their vacant defensive coordinator job. And I believe he has only gotten a request for a head coaching interview with the Ravens. Correct me if I'm wrong. The last time I looked, it was only the Ravens that had requested an interview for him. And so if the Ravens choose not to make him the head coach, he will be available for a coordinator job because I believe his contract is up with the Minnesota Vikings. So he might have to do a lateral. So both of these guys, Jim Schwartz and Brian Flores, we'll see how it all pans out. We don't know yet, but I'm not ruling out that both of these guys might have to make a lateral move. And so, my goodness, if the Ravens ended up with either of these guys as a defensive coordinator and then their pick of a head coach, I mean, I don't know anybody that would be complaining about that.
Yeah, you're correct on two of those aspects that you were wondering about. It is an expiring contract in Minnesota for him. And as far as I have kept up with, the only credible report that's out there about a head coach request is from Baltimore.
Yeah.
I'm Brian
so
Flores,
I see people in the chat saying they don't see him making a lateral move. He may not have a choice.
He may not.
His only head coaching interview is with the Ravens. It's the only one.
And hey, it could be Minnesota's decision right here to be like, hey, listen, go test the water, see what's out there for you. And if there's nothing that suits you and your interests, then we'd love to have you back. But you would have thought that if they truly wanted him back, that contract would have been done. That renewal would have been done by now. So unclear
they're
on
keeping their head coach.
Oh, Kevin O'Connell. Yeah, he's going nowhere. That guy, you kidding me?
So maybe he's just asking not to do it for now because he wanted to see what head coaching opportunities there were out there. So if he doesn't get the Ravens head coaching opportunity, then maybe he'll just be like, I'll just go back to Minnesota rather than go elsewhere. I'm just saying, I'm not ruling a lateral move out given his opportunities at this moment.
No, we're totally on the same page. So that brings us to this graphic that obviously I've been having some fun with since this all started. Crazy enough, a week ago is when we learned of John Harbaugh's dismissal around 5:00 Eastern or so in the evening. So being that, for example, the games that were played on Saturday, wild card weekend, any staff member who is of interest to these teams with vacancies, today is the first time that these teams like the Ravens can reach out to those camps. So who would qualify as such? We're talking about Chris Shula, defensive coordinator for the Rams, pass game coordinator for the Rams, Nate Scheelhaus, right? Those guys become eligible to be reached out to today. Matt Nagy, he's a free agent. Well, technically he's not a free agent. He's still on Kansas City staff, but they're out of the postseason, so there's no guidelines that the Ravens have to follow there. Mike McDaniel, he's getting a ton of interest from around the league in terms of potential head coach vacancies. So Ravens, I'm sure we'll talk to him at some point this week, Sarah. Buffalo, let's see. Buffalo played on Sunday. So Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, can't speak to him until tomorrow, or at least file that request, I don't believe. Clint Kubiak, they already spoke to him. One of the 7 completed interviews that they've done. Same thing with Anthony Weaver. Put him in that category as well. Jesse Minter, let's see. The Chargers played on. Well, they lost, so those requests have already been done. That's how we started our show, and they'll talk to him later on this week with no guidelines attached to that. Robert Saleh, the 49ers won, so there's guidelines there. They have not spoken to him yet. They're going to play the Seahawks coming up this weekend. Ravens obviously have to follow things accordingly. Jim Schwartz out, potential free agent, knowing that Stefanski was dismissed. Maybe that'll happen at some point this week. Davis Webb, one of the 7 completed. Cliff Kingsbury, completed in person. Vance Joseph, completed. Of course, Webb and Joseph are a part of Sean Payton's staff in Denver. They were on the first round bye, which is probably why the Ravens made that a priority, Sarah, to get that done before they were preparing for the divisional round. Brian Flores, I don't believe that's been conducted yet. And Kevin Stefanski has been conducted and completed. So anyway, just to catch everybody up to speed, Sarah, on the overall graphic that now reaches 15 deep, and that does include Jesse Minter. So Sarah, there's a really real chance that unless there's somebody waiting in the wings that Steve and Eric and the entire hiring search team has been mum on, there's a very real chance that John Harbaugh's successor might be on the screen right there on that graphic.
Very, very, yeah. Well, could be. Who knows who else could be added to it. But speaking of John Harbaugh, the Atlanta Falcons announced that they did finish and complete their interview with John. So the Falcons was one team that he did select to interview with. But there's a new kind of twist here. There are reports swirling that perhaps, maybe, Matt LaFleur could be out in Green Bay. There's like reports and talks that maybe there's going to be a potential extension. I believe his contract is up. So if Matt LaFleur is out,
the
following year.
Yeah.
But if they are moving on, I mean, if I'm John Harbaugh, I would love it if they would move on, because to me, Green Bay is the best option of any of the open vacancies right now. New York, I think, leads the way before we find out what happens with Green Bay. But my goodness, you got Micah Parsons out there. You've got a quarterback in Jordan Love. I mean, you've got a stable organization with a lot of rich history. So if I'm John, I'm going to make sure my agent's checking in. Hey guys, front office in Green Bay, what are you guys doing? Are you sticking with LaFleur? Like, what's going on here? Because to me, that would be my top pick. Easy, hands down.
How could it not be? Like Jackson Dart and what they're doing in New York, there's like a level of untapped potential there. Jordan Love's shown you who he is. Green Bay's shown you what their capabilities are, what their potential is, which is ultimately why, based on some Schefter reporting the day after that loss, I think they're going to get it done. Something's going to get done there. Schefter said on January 12th, Packers are now expected to try to work out a deal in the coming days to keep head coach Matt LaFleur in Green Bay. So that's kind of what
even if they don't get that done, it sounds like they're not moving on this year.
Yeah, exactly. So then I agree with you. If for some reason that's to change and that's an open vacancy, that is far and away, period, the most, I don't even know it's not even debatable. Yeah. That is the top spot for any potential head coach candidate. After that, I could see it being, if I'm John Harbaugh, a conversation between New York, Atlanta, and Tennessee. And what do all those have in common? They have quarterbacks. Now, you might be out there having watched the Falcons. Maybe some of our audience watched the Falcons. I know I had a chance to watch them in person one night this year when Kirk Cousins quarterbacked them, and they came back to stun the Buccaneers here in Tampa in the fourth quarter with just an epic collapse on Tampa Bay's side of things. And maybe you're out there thinking that Michael Penix, quite frankly, is untapped. But Jackson Dart's shown a lot of good things in year one in New York. You'd have to think that John feels like he can get a lot more out of him than what Brian Daboll and the interim head coach Kafka got in year one. And then after that, hey, you got a number one draft pick that's waiting for you in Tennessee that somebody probably wants to try and build around. So I'd have to think, Sarah, if Green Bay is not an option, it's between those three for John. We'll see. Chris Mara, who's an executive within the Giants organization, went to John's house in Owings Mills and had lunch with him yesterday. There's reports out there on that. So if that's an indication of just how serious he is with potentially how things could be developing for him in New York, maybe that's imminent. But those are the three teams I'd be deciding on, assuming that Green Bay is not an option.
Yeah, and speaking of Atlanta, did you see that they announced that Matt Ryan is their new, it's a new position, president of football. President of football. So if John went out there, I think he'd be working pretty closely with him. So what does that mean? What does it mean for the Falcons with him being the president of football? It says Ryan has the final say on all football matters, uniting the front office's vision. So he's leading the hiring process for the new head coach and the GM, and then he would report directly to owner Arthur Blank.
So. I mean, aren't those two cut from the same cloth? Don't they give you similar vibes, like old school vibes, Matt Ryan and John Harbaugh? And look, while the quarterback position perhaps is unsettled there, knowing that you've got Kirk Cousins under contract and Penix has disappointed through his first couple of years in the league, their skill position players, unreal to watch in person. Kyle Pitts at the tight end position is like a gazelle galloping through the field. It was unbelievable to watch he and Bijan Robinson in person. I'm not just saying this, the glazing live chat's going to continue right now, right? But yeah. Sarah, watching those two skill position players in person was really something to see. And there's obviously a lot to like there offensively.
All right. Well, one last piece of news before we get an ad read and get to a new topic here. Clarence Hill, reporter that covers the Dallas Cowboys. He tweeted yesterday, multiple sources confirmed the Cowboys have made an interview request for Ravens defensive coordinator Zachary Orr. So apparently, well, not apparently, Orr and Brian Schottenheimer coached together with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they've remained close since. I'm a little bit surprised that Zach Orr is getting a defensive coordinator interview. It obviously doesn't mean he's going to get it, but it makes sense that Schottenheimer would do that given their background. But I just don't see what Zach Orr put on tape or on paper to say, hey, yeah, this guy deserves a second chance right now. You know what I mean? Because he's so young. You'd think that plenty of teams would love him again as like a linebacker coach or some other position coach. But I'd be a little bit surprised if he got a defensive coordinator position straight out of what just happened with the Ravens the last 2 years.
Yeah, I think we all would be happy for him. Hope he gets, another opportunity in the league. He's 33. His story is very much unwritten in the grand scheme of things. And maybe there's a world where he returns to Baltimore in some sort of non-defensive coordinator role in the coming years. There's a reason why he's beloved in that building.
I'm sure he and Jesse Minter knew each other.
Yeah. And
if
unless your name
were hired. Yeah.
Unless your name is Eddie Jackson, be hard pressed to find a player that, has spoken down on Zach Orr. That said, I thought Jimmy gave some good, fair criticism in terms of, hey, 2 years, a 2-year sample size of underwhelming performance is what his units posted. And unfortunately, that's a reflection of his first break in the business at the play caller position. So, look, Sis can get on here all he wants, and we respect the heck out of him and his, perspective, and say, at the end of the day, it's when you step over those white lines, it's about you and what you do as a player. We get that. But I think there's also a level of accountability that Zach has had to take over these last couple of years, Sarah, with brutally slow starts that has plagued them on his side of the ball. So, anyway, we'll follow that. And to your point, we'll gauge whether or not this is a legitimate interview, or is it more so along the lines of potentially becoming a part of a future staff outside of Baltimore in a non-play caller role as he tries to get his career back on track.
Perfect.
All right, guys. 90 minutes out, if you were wondering, from Steve Bisciotti and Eric DeCosta's press conference. Sarah and I will be going live as soon after as we possibly can for a little bit of specialized coverage for you. Try and give our instant reaction thoughts on Steve Bisciotti's first public comments in a on-camera setting since 2018. But first, this episode is brought to you by our longest standing sponsor, and that is our friends at Manta Sleep. And right now at mantasleep.com, if you use the discount code VAULT10, that's VAULT10, it'll get you 10% off your next purchase. You can enhance your sleep in 2026 and beyond by going to check out what they have, whether it's a sleep mask, one of the many that you can choose from is the one that I wear on a nightly basis. It's the Manta Sleep Mask Pro. When you toggle over every single one of their options, they give you a detailed, in-depth breakdown in terms of the features that come along with these sleep masks. They also have a bunch of different sleep earplugs that you can choose from. The white noise machines are unbeatable. There's a bunch of sleep add-on features as well, along with bundles if you want to kind of package things up and try things and experiment with them moving forward to celebrate this new year. So again, mantasleep.com. We appreciate them for their continued support. We hope to be with them for the foreseeable future. And you can learn more by clicking on the link that we have included in our show notes. And if you're watching in real time at the moment, we have it pinned in our live chat. Sarah, why don't you get us started? Oots is celebrating 4 months of channel membership with us. We're glad he's with us today.
He says, last night's game was such a catch-22, a defense that carries or an offense that makes 4 turnovers from their own defense worthless. Absolutely wild. We will be getting into that Steelers-Texans game right after these Super Chats.
Lewis is celebrating 10 months with us, and Lewis writes, in my Bart Scott voice, can't wait. Could our next head coach be introduced today? All I know is you two are the best. Thank you both for everything. Lewis, don't hold your breath. I think this is going to be a multi-week effort and is just getting started, seeing as how there's no reported second interview that's been conducted.
Yeah, they got to come into the building and with second interviews. Yeah.
Quite frankly, they haven't even gotten the second half of the first wave here of their 15 total candidates. Dark Thunder's with us.
He says, we lost the battle but won the war against the Steelers. Praying that Marvin Lewis Tomlin gets extended. And there are people in Pittsburgh being like, man, I wish that Tyler Loop made that field goal because they want Mike Tomlin gone. And so they feel like he'd have a better chance of being gone if he didn't make it to the playoffs again. So a lot of them are like, did we even really need Tyler Loop to miss that? Was this even worth it?
And what Dark Thunder is referring to there with the Marvin Lewis analogy is that with last night's loss, Tomlin tied Marvin Lewis for the longest postseason losing streak with 7 consecutive losses. Again, we have slides on that coming up in just a bit. Rave says, I thought I'd rub it in. John Harbaugh's fired. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. Fired. Hashtag Ben Cleveland. Pete's
what are you
going to
do without Ben Cleveland this year, Rave? What are you going to do? You got to come up with a new hashtag.
Become a Chargers fan, he can do.
Is that where he's going?
Oh, I forgot. Yeah. So
did I miss that while I was in Mexico?
One of the many things when you were in the tropics, trying not to drown, trying not to break your ankle into ligament tears and you name it, and also having fun with your friends, Ben was signed to the Los Angeles practice squad, Ravens West.
Dang, I did not. I definitely missed that news while I was out. And by the way, Bobby, update on my bum ankle. I did go to High Fitness today.
Oh.
I was about 75%. My husband was like, if you don't feel like sharp pains, you're going to be fine. So my foot is still completely black and blue, but I still burned like 470 calories.
I got to give it to you. That's the turnaround that I did not see coming. So
yeah, me neither. Me neither. Okay. Anyway, who's this? This is
Pete.
Pete says Clint for head coach. What's BF?
Brian Flores, defensive coordinator.
Okay. McDaniel, OC. A guy can dream.
Yeah.
Let's keep the dreams coming.
Yeah. The only issue there, Pete, as you probably already know, is that 2 of the 3 are got multiple head coach interview requests that are out there. Adit writes, what about Minter as the head coach and Clay Kubiak? Oh, Clay Kubiak. I thought you were saying Clay. Yeah, Clay Kubiak, who's the OC, who'd be making a lateral move on the Sean McVay tree, Adit. But
right, and he can't because he's under contract. You can't make lateral moves if you're under contract, only if you're not under contract.
Not to mention, they still got a lot to play for. Rams are moving on into the postseason, into the divisional round. Appreciate you, Adit. And thanks to all of you for being with us this afternoon. Less than 90 minutes out from the Steve Bisciotti, Eric DaCosta press conference. We look forward to giving you instant reaction immediately after that. But Sarah, first, one and done yet again for the Pittsburgh Steelers in an embarrassing effort last night. 6 total points to the top defense in all the land for my money. Houston came into Pittsburgh at Acrisure. 30-6 was the final. Pittsburgh could not move the ball. CJ Stroud was turning the ball over 3 times, and yet you win by this comfortable of a margin. Take a look. The Texans defense generated an EPA in the negatives, and not just in the low negatives. This is the high negatives. Again, EPA measures performance, overall efficiency. Minus 33.4. That's the fewest by any playoff defense in the last decade. If this was it for Aaron Rodgers, Sarah, what a way to go out. This was brutal offense from Pittsburgh. I'm sure if you're a Ravens fan today, it's mixed emotions. You get the one and done a week after the Ravens obviously don't qualify, but Pittsburgh put up that kind of showing against Houston. You'd like to think, I don't know if I would have picked the Ravens, to be quite frank with you, if they matched up with Houston last night. But you'd like to think they would have put on a better showing than what the Steelers did last night.
To your point, CJ Stroud played terribly. Those 2 early turnovers, like he's basically trying to gift it to them. And they still only managed 6 points. 6 points. So, Bobby, I don't know what's more embarrassing. The way the Steelers played last night in just an atrocious effort, and they had DK Metcalf back. They could get nothing going on offense. So is it more embarrassing the way they played? Or is it more embarrassing that the Ravens lost not once, but twice to this just pathetic Steelers team, especially on offense. The Ravens lost to that team twice. Woof. And it even had to come down to a Tyler Loop missed field goal. Bobby, as Marcus points out here, Baltimore's defense gave up nearly 400 yards last week to the DK Metcalf-less offense over in Pittsburgh. And so it's like, you kind of want to there's been so many times where the Steelers have lost and it's just so fun as a Ravens fan. You're just like, ha, 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 in your face. This is fun to watch you guys be miserable. But you can't even really do that because you lost to this team just last week, giving up over 400 yards. Just woof. Absolutely terrible. The Texans had 4 sacks, 2 takeaways. The defense scored twice and allowed 0 touchdowns. Just absolutely brutal. Texans in the 3 years before DeMeco Ryans, by the way, who I absolutely love. Texans in 3 years before DeMeco Ryans, 11 wins, 0 playoff appearances. And now Texans in the 3 years with DeMeco Ryans, 35 wins and 3 divisional round appearances. Good for him.
Yeah, yet another example of why coaching matters. We've seen it in Chicago this year with Ben Johnson. We saw it obviously in New England with Mike Vrabel, Liam Cohen in Jacksonville. And as this graphic here suggests and states, screams really, DeMeco Ryans the last few years has found something, in CJ Stroud, found something in his defensive unit, and they play for him. You can tell he was a hard-hitting defender during his playing days. And so when you subtract 14 total points from the 30 that they were able to post as a team, I mean, this was maybe not just as pedestrian for what Pittsburgh did offensively. They weren't even able to reach the end zone, Sarah, but it wasn't a good day offensively. And yet they carried the torch. DeMeco's side of the ball did. And that's what winning teams do. And now it sets CJ up, who's already got a few playoff wins to start off his young career, to go into the divisional round, have a short memory, and try and recover and know that he's got the best defense that's flying around all 3 levels. And Aaron Rodgers was under constant duress. Constant. They got to him 4 times in terms of sacks, as we had up on that graphic a little while ago. They stuffed him on Pittsburgh didn't even try to run. 63 total yards, 18 carries. They held DK Metcalf to just 2 receptions on 5 targets. He had at least 1 drop that was sprinkled in there. Rodgers coughed the ball up twice, lost it one of those 2 times. I mean, this was just an excellent dominant defensive performance, and it would not surprise me, as it tends to happen with wild card teams that get hot at the right time, and they are hot. They've ripped off 10 straight wins. Would not surprise me if Houston gets a little run together here.
Absolutely. They could. I mean, the field is not that impressive, so why not? I mean, those numbers from the defense is like Ravens old school numbers. I mean, it's insane. So Kevin Ostreicher, friend of the show, says, I have no idea why Texans defensive coordinator Matt Burke isn't getting more head coaching buzz. Houston's defense is a unit. He'd be fun with Kyle Hamilton and the Ravens. And then Marcus Mosher says, because he doesn't get to take Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, Derek Stingley, and Jalen Petrie with him. It's kind of a good point. Sometimes you got to have to separate some of these coordinators from what they have. I mean, he would not have a pass rush. Hopefully that changes. Eric DeCosta has to build the trenches this offseason. That's got to be his number 1 priority. He has to build the trenches. But he's not going to have those guys at his disposal. That's for sure.
Just a bunch of dogs. They're fun to watch. And they are more than hot at the right time as they get ready for the divisional round. Meanwhile, they send Aaron Rodgers into an offseason of a big decision looming. Could very well have played his last game,
with his last throw being a interception that he tried to tackle. A pick 6 that he tried to tackle. He led with his shoulder and just whiffed and landed out of bounds.
Yeah, he exited the game down 30-6, gave it off to Mason Rudolph, and the cameras, of course, for what could have been his final moments in the league as a player, caught as much of him, I should say, as they could, as they kind of, chronicled his career, Troy Aikman and Joe Buck in the booth. And our friend Brooke Pryor, who went stupid viral within the last 24 hours or so for her take on the whole Lynn Jones press conference in Jacksonville, but that's neither here nor there. She transcribed what Cam Hayward, longtime Steeler, probably a future Canton Jacket Hall of Fame wearer, I would think, had to say about Aaron and the sole year, perhaps lone year, that he played with him. Quote, if 8 wants to come back, he has the right to come back. I'd like to see him come back, but I'm not going to make that decision. That's not fair to the Steelers. It's not fair to 8. Have a lot of respect for the organization and Aaron. Sarah, I think it's time. Troy Aikman feels like it's time.
I was going to ask you because I don't know how you want to describe yourself. I don't know if you're an Aaron Rodgers guy or an admirer or whatever you are. Like, there's nothing to come back for, right?
I think it's time. It's time. And you know what? It's time for Pittsburgh to follow suit with what Baltimore's done. It's not working in Pittsburgh. It is not working. And Tomlin's going to go on to have all the kind of options, TV offers, head coaching vacancies. There's probably teams out there, Sarah, right now among those 8 vacancies, and maybe even those that are trying to figure out what their future is with their guy, that maybe they're just waiting and standing pat here until the Rooneys make their decision, if there is a decision to be made. But yeah, it's time. They gotta move in a different direction.
Okay, let's take this one at a time. I'm definitely with you on Aaron Rodgers. Like, listen, I get why he didn't want to end his career with the way things ended with the Jets, his injuries and all that. He came back. He put together a respectable campaign. He helped lead the Steelers back to the playoffs. Yes, he was one and done, but he got him back to the playoffs. He can finish his career with his head held high with the way it ended. It didn't end with injuries and the New York Jets. Mike Tomlin, I'm still on the fence about, just because he doesn't have a quarterback. Yes, his last playoff win is January 15th, 2017, but he has a built-in excuse. I could totally see why the Steelers be like, hey, we're going to move on. But I could also be like, listen, no matter who we bring in, like, Bobby, we've had a look at the coaching candidate landscape. I have my favorites. But you don't know if they're going to be good. Some of these up and coming guys. And then so like some of the other guys who have already been head coaches, like Mike McDaniel or Kevin Stefanski, like, are they really are any of them really going to succeed in Pittsburgh without a quarterback? That's what the Rooneys have to ask themselves. The Ravens had a complete reason to do it. We have an MVP quarterback who's in his prime right now, and our previous head coach didn't get it done with 8 chances. So we have to try something different. With Mike Tomlin, it's like, yeah, we can move on, but is anybody going to be good if we don't have a quarterback? Are they just going to be the same thing that Mike's been or worse? So that's why I'm not on the yes, Tomlin's got to go. But both Tomlin and Rodgers were asked after the game about Tomlin's future and even Aaron Rodgers. And here's Get Up talking about the playoff record for Mike Tomlin, and then goes into the press conferences for both the head coach and the quarterback.
They now have a playoff winless drought that extends to 3,285 days. They've lost 7 straight playoff games, and in those, they have trailed by at least 21 points in every single one of them. Lots of questions now swirling around the future of Mike Tomlin. Here's what he had to say.
I'm not even in that mindset as I sit here tonight. I'm more in the mindset of what transpired in this stadium and, certainly what we did and didn't do. Not a big picture mentality as I sit here tonight.
This league has changed a lot in my 21 years. When you hear a conversation about the Mike Tomlins of the world, when I first got in the league, there wouldn't be conversation about whether those guys were on the hot seat. But the way that the league is covered now, and the way that there's snap decisions and the validity given to the Twitter experts and all the experts on TV now who make it seem like they know what the hell they're talking about. To me, that's an absolute joke.
What have you learned from being with Mike for a season about him?
I've answered that a number of times. I've talked extensively about how I feel about Mike, and I just did not answer. So thanks.
Oh, so was that really necessary? Like, so angry, dropping the F-bomb because the guy was like, "What have you learned from Mike?" Like, okay, you've press conferences are notorious for like different reporters coming in and like you're gonna get asked the same question, whatever. I don't understand.
He was in no mood. If you watched,
He was in
as
no
I did
mood.
the last couple minutes of him walking off the field, there were some videographers and NFL staffers in his way. He wasn't exactly kind or patient with them in front of him in what could be his final walk-off, and then obviously what could be his final post-game press conference. In no mood as well. I did listen to it in full.
Yeah.
He was pretty insightful throughout. And then when the Tomlin stuff came up, particularly with the two that you answered, it went south ultimately with South with the way that he walked off on his own. But yeah, it's time, Sarah. It's time. It's time.
He doesn't have it anymore. And I mean, to see whatever. We'll move on. It's time. And so now we have the divisional round set. Bobby, still looking at this landscape. I'm so angry that Lamar's been hurt all year because this is, what a waste. So now it's the Bills versus the Broncos. They're going to play Saturday at 4:30. You've got the 49ers and the Seahawks. Now, is that Clint versus Clay? Are they the offensive coordinators of these two teams?
You're looking at the San Francisco.
San Francisco and Seahawks. Yeah, San Francisco and the Seahawks.
No, Clay is in LA.
Oh, he's in LA.
Yeah, okay. He's under McVay.
Okay.
But what's intriguing about that from a Ravens perspective, depending on where everybody's candidacy preferences lies, San Francisco has Saleh as the DC, and of course, Clint is Mike's OC. So they'll be going up indirectly against one another, which should be fun to watch.
Right. So those are the Saturday games. Why is it that AI Overview is telling me that Seattle Seahawks has Clint and the 49ers have Clay? Are you sure you're right?
Because I inaccurately told you that. No, he's in San Francisco.
Okay, so the brothers are going head to head. Okay.
Apologies. Clay is in San Francisco. Sorry about that. Clint is in Seattle. Yes. I was confusing Clay with LaFleur's brother. Sorry. So Clay, just to be clear, sorry about that, guys. Clay Kubiak is in San Francisco. Clint is in Seattle. Not to be confused with LaFleur, which I don't know why you would be, but I was just multitasking. Mike LaFleur is Sean McVay's offensive coordinator. Apologies.
We made it. We got here. It took us a minute.
There's too many interwoven family connections and Kubiaks and LaFleurs and McVay trees and Shanahan trees and you name it. So sorry about that. Yes, that should be a fun brotherly matchup, even though they won't directly be going up against one another.
Okay, so there's that. Then Sunday games, the Texans, by beating the Steelers, earned the right to go play against the New England Patriots. That will be 3 p.m. on Sunday. Then you got the Rams and Bears. The Ravens beat the Bears with Tyler Snoop Huntley.
With Snoop, yeah.
They will play Sunday evening at 6:30.
Did you watch their comeback against Green Bay? Maybe you didn't because you were traveling and trying to get yourself back. But let me tell you, what they did, and maybe more so how Green Bay collapsed in the fourth quarter, they had an 18-point lead. Correct me. Stop me if you've heard that before. 18-point lead. And Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson in Chicago chipped away at it and ultimately renewed that rivalry in one night. It was something else. And Ben Johnson's got Chicago humming.
All right. Yeah. Good for them. Good for them. Whoop-de-doo. Okay. Should we get to a couple more super chats and then we'll do a quick preview of Steve Bisciotti with some quick hits and get out of here?
Sounds good. Dream says same team Baltimore gave up 26 points to. I think he's referring to
Steelers.
Pittsburgh. Yeah. Compensatory pricks with us. I know this is a good one. This name popped up when you were out. Yeah, it's funny.
You just said it like it like rolled off your tongue.
Well,
Like you
he
said
was very active.
compensatory
He was very active last week.
I'm dead over here by that name and the way you just said it like it was nothing. Okay. He says, I know it's too soon, but at some point we should do a best of for Harbs. My all-time fave memory is him chewing out Lil Gruden when Aiken almost got his neck broken in a tackle in the preseason. Oh. I remember. That one I forgot about.
Yeah, I don't have anything on that. My all-time favorite memory is chewing out Lil Gruden when Aiken almost got his neck. I'm going to have to Google that. My Timbers Shivered says, if a fast turnaround occurs, Harbaugh's legacy will largely be that he ran a great team into the ground because he was too dependent on coordinators for identity and too stubborn firing bad coordinators. My Timbers Shivered. Appreciate you guys for being with us today. We are closing in on an hour, Sarah, for the press conference between Steve Bisciotti and Eric DeCosta. And you brought in, as we kind of transition to some quick hits. And also we're going to preview, which is coming up in a couple slides here, what we would ask, some potential questions that will be asked and may or may not be answered coming up at 2:00.
This was just a thought I had yesterday, and I forgot to bring it up when I was doing like my monologue as I came back and gave my reaction to Harbaugh and all that. One thing that I do wonder if John Harbaugh didn't want to say it was mutual ways, Drew Forster pointed this out last week, is that John's agent probably wouldn't want anything other than the wording of he was relieved or fired, because he did just sign that new contract extension. And maybe he wanted to protect the $55 million Harbaugh is owed through guarantees in that 3-year contract. $55 million. So it's like, no, we're not going to mutually part ways, because couldn't that lead to him canceling out that $55 million? So I just wonder, the initial reaction is like, oh, this was a firing. This wasn't a mutually part ways. Maybe they have bad blood. I highly doubt Steve Bisciotti and John Harbaugh are going to have bad blood. Although there's definitely going to be emotions initially. But if $55 million are on the line, yes, you fired me. We did not mutually part ways.
With that, Sarah, that gave me a second to just get spruced up on something that we just were super chatted about that I was not covering the team during. But August 29th, 2015, piece put together here by Fox Sports detailed what, let's make sure we throw this up here to give him his credit. Let's see. Compensatory prick. Look back at this, and a scuffle broke out after a third down play because of the way then Redskins linebacker Keenan Robinson drove Ravens receiver Kamar Aiken into the ground following a catch. Harbaugh ran onto the field to try keeping what a shocker, Sarah, Steve Smith Sr. away from Washington's bench, and he and Jay Gruden, the then head coach of the Redskins, now Commanders, got into a shouting match.
Oh,
so
there it is.
There you have it. I needed a refresher on something
there.
that, let's see. I was, August 2015. I was just getting back to Loyola for my, you know what? I'm sorry. I was in Madrid, Spain for the first of 5 months to study abroad. So sorry I didn't have that one in my Rolodex there, compensatory. Appreciate you guys.
All right.
Shall we preview what's coming up?
Yeah. Just real quick, just so we know, like the Ravens had a lot of leftover money this year, according to Brian McFarland. So they're going to be able to carry over $10.2 million of unused 2025 cap space. He says that is by far the most they've carried over since 2012, when they carried over 5.8. So that almost doubles it. So there's 10.2 to play with, and they're going to need it. They got a lot of guys still to sign.
It won't be long till we bring Brian back inside the vault come free agency and cap spending and all that good stuff. It'll be fun. And Brian's the best. Raven salary cap analysis all the time. And now, Sarah, we preview what's coming up 62 minutes from right now. If you're watching us in real time, Steve Bisciotti and Eric DeCosta will conduct a press conference for the first time since John Harbaugh was dismissed a week ago today. And what I spent my morning doing was just jotting some thoughts down in terms of what I would potentially ask. And yeah, a lot of these may go unanswered, but I would be interested in a few of these questions, Sarah, and how they might respond to said questions. And I'll just kind of rip through them and you let me know what you think and maybe what you'd add. And we do have a Q&A that's up in the live chat. So feel free, guys, if you'd like to weigh in with what you would ask if you had access today to this press conference. And I kind of began, Sarah, with the elephant in the room. What was the deciding factor in John's firing? What is the team looking for in its next head coach? Are there any second interviews that are potentially coming down the pike here? And if so, with who? Did Lamar play a role in this decision to dismiss John Harbaugh? What influence has Lamar had, if any at all, in this search process? The biggest elephant of them all, when will Lamar contract extension talks resume? Have they already? What is Nnamdi Madubuike's football future with that neck? Has there been a procedure done? Last time we heard that had not been the case. Could Zach Orr be retained in a non-defensive coordinator role, depending on how his interview process goes out there with Dallas and others? How can a pass rush be built this offseason? Not exactly a simple answer to that one. Are both 2026 starting guard spots along the offensive line up for grabs? And is extension eligible Zay Flowers, and what I mean by that is eligible, a priority, knowing that he changed his representation, Sarah, right before the season began? So those are a few that I jotted down. What do you think of them?
Yeah, I like a lot of them. I mean, almost all of them. I would add a few. I would like a review of how he feels Eric DeCosta has been doing his job. Kind of give us, I mean, obviously Eric DeCosta is returning. He's
right
helping find this.
Make sure you answer right in front of him.
Right there. And Eric in front of the world will have his own boss probably critique him, but how could you not? I think that Eric DeCosta didn't have the best offseason in terms of the trenches.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how he feels like Eric DeCosta has been doing his job. We haven't, we literally haven't heard from Steve Bisciotti since he's been hired. So I want to know more about the phone call to John Harbaugh. Do you regret telling him by phone? Was that your plan when you called him to fire him, or is that kind of just where the conversation went? What changed, between, Sunday when you lost the Steelers and taking until Tuesday afternoon? What were you doing to make that decision? And yeah, I like that you asked the Lamar contract, and then I'd take a swing. He'll probably not reveal anything either, but I'd also ask him about Nnamdi Madubuike.
Yeah, you got to get
see
that
what he might say. Yeah,
you got to get that in there. So as the offseason starts to take shape, right? I mean, obviously they have some big decisions to make before we can even skip ahead to the combine, for example, which is the first key offseason date that the Ravens social media team put out in this graphic. You have to get, Lamar's extension done, or at least begin those talks. And you obviously, before anything, have to hire a head coach here in the coming weeks. But the scouting combine, Sarah, as it always is in Indianapolis this year, February 23rd through March 2nd. Finalizing some of my plans to get out there. Looking forward to that and being involved as much as I can be with Jake Asman. It's that time of year where I got my flights booked to San Francisco, where I'll be busting my butt out there for us to speak to as many people as possible. And unlike last year, I think this is going to be a lot easier to figure out who we want to speak to and what needs to be asked. Like last year, it was like, how can they get over the hump? What do you think Lamar is like in the postseason outside of these legacy drives? Like, it was so boring. Now it's going to be like, hey, by then, hopefully there'll be a decision made, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So looking forward to that. After that, the franchise tag deadline. Don't think it would go, Sarah, towards Isaiah Likely. But it is March 3rd, that deadline.
Not when you just signed. I mean, not when you just signed Mark Andrews. You can't pay that much money in one position. Linderbaum?
Tyler could be an option.
It's tougher with the center, though, because it's the whole offensive line. It's the top 5 paid offensive linemen. You can't do that for a center with the way left tackles are paid.
You got to get an extension done with Tyler. He's look, I get it. The whole line regressed. It wasn't a good year. But aren't you willing to more so lean heavily on the previous seasons, knowing what you guard out of the guard play and knowing that was to the right and left of Tyler this year? That's somebody that you want to build around. You use a first-round pick on him, for goodness sake. So, anyway, just know.
By the way, sorry.
Get in.
I was just going to say one other question. I wanted to know Steve Bisciotti's reaction to the leaks that were going to the media about Todd Monkin and others. And I'd also wonder why Todd Monkin isn't getting an interview
In Baltimore?
For the head coaching spot, like Rex Ryan did.
That reminded me that so Todd's interviewed for Cleveland's vacant head coach job, and then now we know what he was texting me about in terms of where he was headed for a second interview yesterday. Tampa Bay's vacant offensive coordinator position. That's what he was. I didn't pry, but that's where he is.
Okay.
So, or I guess tomorrow he's interviewing tomorrow. So anyway, let's see the rest of just these dates. We're just throwing these dates out there to kind of set the table for the next couple months. The new league year begins March 11th, so that's free agency. Annual league meeting in Florida, March 29th through April 1st. April 6th, off-season workout programs begin. The 17th is the deadline for restricted free agents to sign offer sheets. The draft, April 23rd through the 25th. Fifth-year option deadline, May 1st. And rookie minicamp, May 1 through 4 or May 8 through 11. So that's kind of what's coming up, and looking forward to attacking every aspect of this, Sarah. So that's what's going on.
There we go. Look at us. Look at us, Bobby. A 104. We're going to wrap this thing up.
I was going to say, we proved it to ourselves, didn't we? We did.
We doubted ourselves in our pre-show call, but here we are. Because we need an hour before this starts. We got to eat, and we're going to do another live right after the presser. So we wanted to keep it to an hour.
We do. I think it helps that there's a little bit of calm before the storm happening right now. Obviously, content is out there, but it's not as saturated as it's about to be in the next couple hours. So Alyssa and Ivan, first things first, thank you both for believing in what we're building. We appreciate the support that you guys give us through Patreon. And if you guys are interested in doing the same out there, you can visit patreon.com/RavensVault podcast to learn more about what we're offering there. Like you said, 55 minutes from right now, Bisciotti and DaCosta sit down. You and I are going to do our best to be live as soon as that wraps up. Give us a little bit of a buffer period, but we will have a special coverage live stream right after that. I will also be live after that on the Bobby Baltimore side of things, and then the collective is at 8 o'clock. So it will be that kind of day, a 4-stream day, if you will. And Bro Flacco gets us out of here and writes the standard is the standard with a little laughy emoji there. God is good. #Vault, trolling Pittsburgh and trolling Mike Tomlin's phrases.
And just to answer some of the chat's questions of why I would ask that question about Todd Monkin, it's a way to get Steve Bisciotti to say whether Todd Monkin was part of the problem.
Sure. This will be
without outright asking, was he part of the problem? See if he'd offer it up.
This is going to be beyond fascinating. Beyond fascinating to see how Steve handles this. He's coming out of hibernation. What will be entertained? What won't be? What will be fielded by DaCosta? What won't be? What will Steve take? What will Eric not? It's the whole thing is going to be. And again, it could very well, who knows? You and I might get on here in 2 hours time and be like, man, that was Liars Luncheon-esque. We didn't get much. But
Steve's not like that.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. Kobe's happy you're back. Love you, Bobby, but also glad Sarah's back. I am too.
I'm glad to be back, and I'm so glad that you held down the fort. Thank you.
No doubt about it. It was a lot of fun, but obviously challenging, and it's always good to be whole. That's what we are. We're whole. Okay. Everything good?
Everything good.
All right, awesome. You and I will be back in a couple hours. Be on the lookout for that live stream, guys. We'll drop that in the next hour or so in terms of the timing, and just be patient with us if you could on the back end of that press conference, knowing that we're going to be turning around as much information, trying to process it, gather it, and prepare it to give it to you in the most concise, easy to consume fashion. So for Sarah Ellison, our wonderful sponsorship, Manta Sleep, our wonderful partner, and all of you, including our super chat donors, our VAULTRONs, our patrons, I'm Bobby signing off from this Tuesday instant reaction, which is, well, the instant reaction is coming up in just a bit. It's a Tuesday Ravens lunch hour live stream. Thank you guys. On your way out, if you could like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, consider becoming a channel member or gift giving membership today. And we'll see you in just a few short hours right here inside the vault.